Hi, I'm Andy, aka Googleman, and today I'm very excited to talk to you about Jamboards.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
I'm Googleman.
Hi there everyone and welcome back to aka Googleman. If you haven't done so already, please click on the subscribe button down below, and please, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and remember to pass it on to other teachers as well. In fact, anyone that uses G Suite that you think might find this useful. So today I'm going to be talking to you about Google Jamboards. Now, just to clarify for everybody, I'm going to be talking about the web app and the mobile device app as well. I'm not actually going to be talking about physical Jamboards, as some of you may have heard of them. Okay, the reason I'm not going to be doing that is frankly because they are incredibly expensive. They're about £4,000 over here in the UK. Now, if anyone happens to want to buy me a Jamboard and I can put it up in my classroom, that would be great. But in the meantime, we are stuck with the software versions of these, and actually I don't see that as a massive weakness, and I'm going to talk to you about all of that today, particularly when it comes into the realms of distance and blended learning. So if that sounds like something that is going to be really useful to you, because I hope it will, let's jump in. So let's begin by finding Google Jamboards, and much like rubrics that I spoke about in my last video, this is something that is relatively new to me but is becoming a massive firm favourite of mine. So the couple of ways to do it are the same as for any other. If you are on any of the other Google Suite apps or Google Workspaces apps as they now are, go to your waffle menu up in the top right hand side and scroll down until you find Jamboards, or indeed if you just go to your URL bar at the top and type in jamboard.google.com, it will take you there. And it's as simple as that. Now, of course, from here you can start your Jamboards. There's a little plus symbol in there, and it will just take you to a new Jamboard, and you can rename that in the same way as you would a Google Doc or anything else like that. In fact, another good way to create these is the same as it is creating anything else in Google Drive, as we spoke about in the Google Drive Basics video, is if you're in Drive, use one of the two main methods for creating a new file or document in there, and you can actually create a Jamboard direct from there. So if you've got a folder that you'd rather keep them in to organize things, you can do that. Personally, at the moment, I'm just organizing them using the Jamboard home, but it's quite likely as I use more of these, I'm going to move them into my main Google Drive for organizing. So from here, the question is, what do you do with the Jamboard once you're there, and what exactly is a Google Jamboard? Well, if you've reached this point, what you will see is that essentially this is a virtual whiteboard, okay, and it's a great way of using like smartboard style technology without the need of actually having a smartboard in the room. And you can do nice simple things. So in the web app, you can actually first of all create a text box. So if you want to put text onto there, okay, if you're displaying this in your classroom perhaps, or sharing it with students via some kind of Meet or Zoom or something like that, I'll show you all of these things later as well. Then you can create a text box and type something in there, okay? There is also actually handwriting recognition on here, which when I talk about mobile devices later is absolutely fantastic, and it's actually very, very accurate, all things considered, and I scroll when I write on a tablet, but more on that later. You can add in images as well, so as you can see, I'm just going to put in a very, very simple logo. I'm just going to put the Jamboard logo into this particular one here. Okay, I've saved it into my Google Drive already, so I can just find it in there, the same as if I was inserting an image anywhere else. Okay, I also have the option to do a Google image search as well, so if I don't have the image saved, or perhaps I want to make it a little bit more bespoke to the moment in there, and this is one of the great things about Jamboards that I take far over using a slide at this point, is you can make it bespoke as you go along. You can search for that particular image, click on it and insert it directly into there. Once things are in there, down the left hand side of your screen, what you should be able to see is you've got some a cursor symbol. Sorry, forgot how words worked. You've got the cursor symbol there, click on that and you can select things in the middle of your Jamboard and move them around. okay, to wherever you want, and you can resize them, you can delete them, anything you want. Okay, you've got the option on that same side there to put shapes onto your Jamboard as well, and you've got a full variety of shapes there, and you've actually got sticky notes on there as well. And I really like the idea of sticky notes because actually when you add things onto your Jamboard, each thing becomes a new layer, not unlike using a Google slide or a Microsoft PowerPoint. And what I'm tending to do at the moment, and again a bit more to demonstrate later on, is I will put one sticky note on top of the other, either with like a category name or something on there, or just with something blank, and I'll put it over the top of something that perhaps has keywords on it. So in the demonstration you've got here, I've just got a short list of keywords, okay, and what I've done is I've covered those up. Now when I am using this later on, I can just move that blank one, or actually it's not blank in this case, I've put the word keywords on there. I can move that to the back, which automatically brings up my keyword list to the front. So when I'm displaying that, I just do a couple of clicks and it appears. Not unlike using a PowerPoint, but again, I could do this as I go along. If I need to change anything really, really quickly, I can. I can even add things to sticky notes, and I'll show you how that works a little bit later on. So here we are. Hopefully you can see now around me a Jamboard screen, and actually this is the Jamboard that is being shown on my iPad right now, and I actually use this to teach with in lessons at the moment, particularly when I'm doing my distance learning, although it does work equally well in a classroom if you can stand just like reining in just your expectations a little bit on speed, but as you get more used to it, you kind of get used to using everything, and it becomes nice and quick as well. Okay, so that's absolutely fine. I'll talk you through those later on in the video. Now on this particular Jamboard here, you can see that I've got some blue lines running across the screen. Now what I've done there is in the web app I've changed the background on there, okay, and it's nice and simple. Near the top of the screen it just says change background or set background, and you can set it to dots or a grid or blue line. This is really handy if you are going to be using handwriting on here, because it gives you a little bit of scale to work with. You can't do it in the mobile app at the moment, okay, you have to do it on the web, so you do have to use them in concert a little bit, but it is definitely worth it. So on here now, what I'm going to do is put a title in for the piece of work. Now I've been teaching a piece of Mozart to my GCSE classes, so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to use that as a title. So over on the left hand side of my iPad screen, I've got all the various options here, some of which are not available from the web app, you may have noticed, but if you've got the little plus arrow there, you've got this menu comes up. I can now add my sticky notes and my images and things like that. I can also add in Drive content here as well, and I'll come to that in a moment. But first I am going to put a title at the top of this frame. Okay, I'm going to go into my pen selection. I've got a selection of pens across the top and a selection of colours. I'm going to come down to the assistive drawing tools. Now I've got the ability here to draw objects if I want to. I also have the ability to put in shapes, and it will recognise those things that I draw in or extrapolate what I'm trying to do. I haven't tried the object drawing tool yet, I have to say, so more on that in a future video, I think. What I'm focusing on here though is the text recognition. I use this all the time with my lessons, and it's not perfect, and neither am I, so sometimes things go a little bit wrong, but once you get used to using it, it's absolutely fantastic. So what I'm going to do here is just put a simple title in. I'm just going to write the word Mozart across the top. Okay, and here you can see, nice and simple, it's just recognized all my letters and put them in. From there, it means that I can now resize that. I can change its rotation with the little kind of like dot in the top left. I've got the 3-dot menu on there as well, so that I can delete it, I can duplicate it wherever I want to do. Now, some of the more observant amongst you might have realised I've actually spelled Mozart wrong. Oh dear, not very good luck for a music teacher. Don't worry, I can spell Mozart in reality, but it gives me an opportunity to show you that actually you can treat this like almost like you would real text, but actually even better. So if I come back to my text setting here, if I want to put the letter R in there, if you were writing on a real piece of work, you just put a little up arrow and the letter that should go in there. You can do this with words, you do it with words as well. You can do that here, but it will just put it into the word for you. So if I put the letter R down here and a little up arrow, it flashes in and puts the R into the place where my arrow was pointing. Really nice and quick and easy. If indeed I did that wrong, or I put the wrong letter, okay, I can actually strike through the letter that I don't want in there anymore, and it just gets rid of it. Down in the bottom right, I do have the undo function, okay, so I can put that back into there. Or indeed, if the whole word is wrong, or I've put the wrong word in, or I want to get rid of something to demonstrate, I draw a horizontal line through and it deletes the entire word. It's like you were treating it as a real piece of paper, but it's far, far neater. Okay, I'm going to undo that and get it there. To move around on my screen, okay, if I go to my cursor tool there, 2 fingers on there will allow me to zoom and move around on the screen. Okay, what I'm going to add in here, okay, is I don't want Mozart to be the only part of the title. I actually want to put another word in there for my purposes. I'm going to put the word trio in as well because it's part of the piece that I am learning. So I'm going to zoom in again, and I'm intentionally going to write at a different size. Okay, so it's put those letters and it's put them wonky, and they're a different size probably than the other ones, but it's okay because I can actually put those with the rest of my title. With my select button cursor on, I can just press on there and drag it over to the rest of the word. You'll see a little blue vertical line has appeared. If I put that in the right place, I'll let go and it now becomes part of my title. Okay, this is really handy and something that I will also use on sticky notes. You can do exactly the same thing. So what I would do here is if I go to the little plus and go to sticky note, I get this and I just type in text in here. Okay, so I will type in the question, what is the key? Because it's a question I am asking when I'm doing this at the moment, and it creates my little sticky note for me there. As like I did on the web, I can move that around, I can resize it. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I would ask for an answer, and obviously this would be displayed either on my actual whiteboard through my projector, or I'd be showing it through Google Meet and they would see all these changes. I will say if I select on that and move it around, they will not see the changes on their Jamboard when they're viewing it until I click off it. Okay, just something to consider. So let's have that in the middle. Now I want them to say D major, because at this point the piece is in D major. You don't have to understand what that means, but that's just what I'm going to write. And in fact, I'm just going to zoom in underneath here and just write that there. I'm going to write D major. Okay, once again, recognized everything in there, put it in really, really nicely. I'm going to zoom out and it's the right answer, and I want that to be part of that. Now I've done this with multiple sticky notes where they have to come up with the answer, and then I can move it onto the correct sticky note afterwards to remove confusion. So rather than having arrows flying everywhere, which you can do, so if I wanted to, I would go to my handwriting tool, I would choose one of my handwritings and I can draw an arrow to that, okay, or vice versa. I'm not going to do that though, so what I'm actually going to do is select D major, drag it onto the sticky note, and again I've got the blue vertical cursor and I will let that go and it goes onto the sticky note. Okay, so it goes to the correct place, and you can do that on any of them, and it's a fantastic little tool for when you're showing things to the class. The other way that you could possibly do this, so if I undo that, I'm just going to get rid of that. I could have a sticky note with it on. So if it's just kind of like maybe a recap quiz, a retrieval practice quiz at the beginning of a lesson, I'm going to create a new sticky note and I'm just going to have D major written onto that sticky note. Okay, so that is the answer to the question, what is the key? So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pull that over the top, okay, and I'm going to make sure, so I've got my D major one selected, and I'm going to send it backwards, so now it can't be seen. Okay, this is great. So if you're like hiding various answers, it's almost like having an animation on your PowerPoint. I can then click on what is the key and select send backwards and click off, and there it is. There's the answer and it appears, okay, on the screen. I know this sounds like really silly things and I'm getting excited over really daft stuff. I probably am, but this is a great tool. Okay, now when it comes to sharing these with students, there's a couple of things that you do need to bear in mind. Okay, I'll show you on a separate screen in a moment how to share these with the class. I mean, you can share a Jamboard in the same way as you would share a normal document in Google Drive. You can also add a link to it into Google Meet, and that's the thing I'll show you in a moment. The question, however, is whether you, when you're in a Google Meet in particular, do you share the Jamboard and get them to open it separately, or do you just share your screen? I would argue that you share the actual Jamboard with them. Okay, it's really worthwhile, and if you're communicating well enough with them and they can hear you, then you can give the instruction to move between different frames. So on here, for example, along the top of the screen, you can see 1 out of 1 along the top here. If I press the right arrow along there, it creates a new frame for me. It's still part of the same Jamboard, but it's a new one, and you can set up multiple frames in advance. And I ask my class to jump from one frame to another. If this is going to be too unwieldy, you think, or you've got a large group, perhaps you would share your screen so they'd see what you're doing kind of as you go along. That's completely up to you. But I would say share the Jamboard with them, and they will see all the changes as you go along. And just ask them to move along with you. There's no reason they shouldn't be able to keep up. I've been doing that really successfully in the last week. And I've not had any major issues with that at all. Once you're done with your Jamboard for the lesson, and this can be done on either the web app or on the mobile device app like I'm using here, at the end of a lesson, you want to make sure that the students have got all the notes that they can. Now, normally, you might have rubbed things off your whiteboard as you went along, or you're not sure if they've written everything down. Perhaps they've missed something off there, or maybe they're not able to copy things down. They haven't got the speed in order to do that. So send them your whiteboard. On my screen here, I've got a 3-dot menu in the top right hand corner. I have the same menu on the web app as well, and I have 2 options: share Jam as PDF or share this frame as an image. Now, if you're just wanting to share that particular frame, and this is something that might come in handy perhaps for exams, if you've got diagrams and things that you want to put in, whole other thing, whole other conversation, that, okay? Then you can do that. But if you click on share Jam as PDF, okay, it exports all of the frames, and just you would put it obviously in this, because I'm on iOS, it's asking me where I want to save it. Now obviously I'm going to go to copy to drive, and it'll put that into my Google Drive for me, and there you can see it's going in there now, and it'll appear in my Google Drive in a moment. If you were on the app, on the web app rather, it would automatically save it to your Google Drive. I want to save that to my drive. Let's click on there. There it is, Untitled Jam. I haven't given it a name in this case. Okay, and then you can set that as a material on Google Classroom. You can email it to people. You can print it and give it to them as a handout the next lesson, whatever you want to do. I've just been setting it as a material. So in my Google Classroom, I have got topic in the classes that I'm using Jamboard with, that is just called Jamboards, and at the end of each lesson where I use it, I put the PDF into there for them to see. If you want to see, if you want to know how to do those kinds of things, have a look at some of my other Google Classroom videos. It's really, really handy, really, really quick. It's well worth the time. It takes a little bit of setup perhaps, and a little bit of thought and a bit of getting used to, but it's just phenomenal in my opinion. The last thing I want to show you, I'm just going to jump back onto my computer now just to show you how this works when you are in Google Meet. Okay, so when you're in a Google Meet lesson, okay, and this can apply to whether you've got like half and half of the class, or that they're all out in Google Meet, it doesn't really matter. If you are half and half, what I would say is have the Jamboard open as the web app on your computer as well. So as you can see just on my screen here, I've actually got the Jamboard open. And what I would then do is when I project, I would use my projector as a kind of extended desktop, so I can drag that over onto that side. Okay, and I can still see my Google Meet, and it also means anyone in my class can actually see it projected onto my screen. If you look back at any of my Google Meet videos, okay, you kind of see my classroom setup just near the end of that. Okay, I'll link that video for you, so you can see how people can see what's going on in Google Meet and actually what's happening in the Jamboard. And this is where I use my iPad really, really effectively, because then whatever change I make to the Jamboard on my iPad also then appears on the screen for the people in the class as well as the people in the meeting, once of course you have shared the Jamboard. So like I say, you've got 2 options. You can just share your screen with them and share the tab, okay, and again that's covered in the Google Meet videos. But like I say, my personal preference is to share the actual Jamboard with them. If nothing else, when you share your screen, you're trying to do various things on there as well. I tend to find that slows things up a lot within the Google Meet, and that's where you get lots of lag and things like that. So given the actual Jamboard, the easy way to do that is down in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. You've got the 3 dots menu that opens up, and you've got open a Jamboard. When I click on open a Jamboard, I'm given 2 options. I can start a new Jamboard from scratch if I know I'm going to be doing this completely bespoke in the lesson, kind of making it up as I go along. Well, not making up the lesson as I go along, you know what I mean, but making up what goes on the Jamboard. Okay, do that. But normally I've got a Jamboard set up ready to go, so I click on Google Drive. I will say when you're in your Meet, this can be a little bit slow, so you need to have a little bit of patience to set it up. Okay, you need to make sure before you do this that anyone that's going to be in the lesson is already there, and I'll explain why in a moment, and you'll see. Once I do that, okay, I find the Jamboard I want to share with them. Now, if I make sure it's the last thing that I have done in my Google Drive, the recents, which is what will come up first, will automatically be there, okay, and there's the Jamboard that I want to show to everybody. I click on that and then click on insert, and what that does is it puts a link to the Jamboard into the chat box. Okay, the only extra step, as you can see around me, is that I have to give view permission to the people that I'm sending it to, and this is why it's really important to wait until everybody is in the class, because actually what's happening there is you're giving view permission to the people that are there, specifically the people that are there at that moment. Okay, you can of course repeat this process, so if someone does come in late, they won't be able to see the link in the chat because they'll have only just arrived, so you'll have to re-put that link in, or while you're in there, if you do have the web app open, or if you've got a chance, you can share it with them directly and give them view access as if it was a normal Google Drive file. But obviously this kind of streamlines that process. The link then appears in the chat box, and the students, or indeed anyone, you know, if you're running a meeting and you're doing a brainstorming session or something, you know, you want to share a Jamboard with them, you can do that, and it appears in that chat box, and then they click on it and opens it in a tab, and then they can side by side it. They can just have the Jamboard open if they don't want to see your ugly mug on the screen, and then you can start working with them on there. You know, you can start showing your sticky notes, you can add sticky notes, you can add images, you can put your text in, and annotate that Jamboard in any way that you like. Okay, so that's my quick take on Google Jamboards. Like I say, I'm learning new things about this app all of the time. I've used it really successfully in some of my blended and distance learning lessons at the moment. We've had an entire year group out of school in the last, in fact, we've had a couple of year groups out, but I've had my class in through Google Meet, and I've been able to share my Jamboards with them and kind of make notes and show them things as we've gone along, almost like they were in the classroom. Like so many other things you're doing over the web, you do have to perhaps rein in your expectations just ever so slightly, because it is just that little bit slower, okay? But again, it's still better than no learning at all. I really, really like them, and as I learn more, I will pass that on to you. I'll see you all next time. Until then, stay well, stay safe. Googleman out.